Globally, mental health disorders affect 1 in 4 people. Majority of lifelong mental illnesses begin before the age of 25, presenting a real problem for youth. KTPI, a study by the New Zealand Union of Students Association, identified loneliness, academic anxiety, and overworking to meet financial demands as major triggers for depression, stress, and anxiety. In recent years, the government responded by allocating more funding towards student mental health. Yet, employing more counsellors, which is necessary, is not the only way to contribute to an urgent need for a new approach towards supporting mental health and well-being. This research explores how physical spaces could positively impact mental health. An important goal was to align the research with students' needs and views. Facilitating focus groups and creating a temporary lounge intervention were key methods employed to do so. These methods are the focus of this presentation. A series of literature reviews identified important dimensions of well-being that could be embedded in the design of university spaces. Literature was reviewed across 2 fields, health promotion in universities and health and well-being concepts in architecture. Physical, social and cultural were important dimensions of well-being identified in the literature. In New Zealand, cultural well-being is an essential dimension as Indigenous Māori experience far higher rates of mental illness. Almost 50% more Māori experience mental distress than non-Māori populations. In America, American Indians and Alaska Natives experience serious psychological distress 1.5 times more than the general population. And in Canada, Aboriginal persons have some of the highest suicide rates in the world. Inuit suicide rates are 11 times the national average. New Zealand actively seeks strategies for successful integration of Indigenous and Western principles. One important strategy is to implement cultural health models within universities to increase the effectiveness of health promotion for Māori and Pasifika students. One model is Drury's Te Whare Tape Whā, where 4 equal dimensions of well-being each support the other and work together to achieve health. The 4 dimensions are physical, social, mental and emotional, and spiritual well-being. Through a holistic and interconnected approach to health, unique New Zealand cultural models have the potential to be accessible to people of all ethnicities and therefore could be of value internationally. Waterworth and Thorpe suggest there is an alignment with a settings-based approach to health and in New Zealand cultural models. A settings-based approach to health recognises an interconnection between people and their environments. Health is created and lived by the people within the settings of their everyday life, where they learn, work, play and love. It is from this understanding that our everyday settings influence our health. Together with the Hauora Māori health approach, where multiple dimensions of well-being are interconnected and work together to achieve a holistic understanding of health, the design of university spaces could be approached. Health and well-being concepts in architecture were also reviewed. Within evidence-based design, quantitative data was valuable in advocating the necessity of mental health design into our environments, where concepts such as therapeutic landscapes provided insight into more complex processes such as creating a sense of place. There are many contributors towards creating a sense of place, including social processes, community building, daily encounters and routines, and historical connections. Achieving a sense of place goes beyond the physical qualities of space, considering qualitative, non-tangible qualities, such as how space brings people together, supports friendships and community networks to develop healthy communities. Recognising the complex process to create a sense of place reiterated the most significant finding from the literature. Wellbeing is considered multidimensional and interconnected. It is from this understanding that links can be made between health promotion and designing for health and wellbeing and applied to the design of university environments. From analysing existing examples of design interventions supporting community health and wellbeing, it was clear that providing meaningful opportunities for users to engage helped. Therefore, the research adopted the same approach. To understand spaces supportive of student wellbeing at university, focus groups were held at 2 Victoria University of Wellington campuses. The university's Human Ethics Committee approved this research. Across 8 focus groups, 47 students participated. 3 focus groups were conducted with specific groups: the Student Wellbeing Awareness Team, Māori and Pasifika students, and architecture students. The focus group discussions supported and developed understandings from the literature and identified improvements for current university spaces. The focus group discussion supported the dimensions of well-being identified from the literature, as well as an interconnected, holistic understanding of health. A Māori student commented that the discussion transitioned from talking about the physical properties of space to talking about things that aren't there physically. We can't see them, but it doesn't mean that they aren't there. When you see it happen, that's just awesome, trying to get all that in check so people's spirit animal come out. And once it comes out, it's like, boom, house is on fire. Students also identified improvements for current campus spaces. This established a better understanding of how the dimensions of well-being were represented in physical space from a student perspective. Two key findings were students needed more comfortable spaces, and currently cultural and well-being spaces are not spatially prioritised and should be reorientated. A need for more comfortable spaces was identified often through the comparison to the hub experience. The hub is a welcoming space for some students and promotes a strong university community. For others, the hub is just too big and filled with too many people. You can't feel relaxed there. It's a bit hectic, you actually get anxiety. A smaller, comfortable social space was desired, a place you can go for a break when you've been standing for 3 hours straight, to breathe, relax, and be social with nice welcoming furniture that's not clinical or cold. The second finding was dedicated wellbeing and cultural spaces are quite separated and on the outskirts of the campus community. To some students, they are unknown or considered exclusive. For others, physical location and spatial qualities were deterrents for using these spaces, such as away from most of the campus activity and dark, shady, with low ceilings. The Rainbow Inclusion Office also created an interesting discussion on this topic. One student's immediate response to a photo of the space was yuck, before further explaining it was the impermanent cookie-cutter brand vinyl stickers, not the colours. The reaction was important to demonstrate the impact of how culture is visually represented. Despite this, one student who was connected to the Rainbow Inclusion Office remarked, "I found it weird how attached I was to this space." The Rainbow Inclusion Office is frequently visited, but the office is very out of the way. It is an office and a staff space, an opportunity to get support from an advisor, but not an informal space to connect with peers. It's hidden away and definitely should be more integrated into the campus community. The second finding poses an important question. If these spaces were more visible and accessible, could they have a stronger influential impact on the well-being of the campus community? Overall, students recognised a clear link between the campus environment and their well-being and were really willing to be involved. Two key findings were identified that could improve current university spaces and have the opportunity to be implemented through minimal intervention while significantly enhancing well-being at the university. To explore how space could contribute to a greater sense of community, a key finding from the focus groups was tested through a temporary lounge installation curated and observed within the Tertiary campus atrium. The atrium is a central community space in the Wellington School of Architecture. The installation was created in collaboration with the University Student Architecture Network New Zealand Group, and the lounge consisted of borrowed students' couches, which were transported by the team and arranged in the atrium. Over the week, the installation demonstrated how physical space could embed multiple dimensions of well-being. The physical environment aimed to be welcoming and inviting, making students feel cared for. Borrowed student furniture created this atmosphere. The lounge supported learning through providing a space to take a quick break during a week when many assignments were due. Students were empowered to take control of the environment, free to adjust furniture configurations. The lounge was used as an informal learning space, creating opportunities to work together and share knowledge. And creating a space with a team supported well-being through feelings of agency, reclaiming the atrium as a student space. A sense of social well-being was observed through social connection from both planned and spontaneous meetings. And the larger communal well-being was observed through the diversity of interactions between undergraduate and postgraduate students, staff and visitors, creating a strong sense of community. The lounge brought life into the centre of the campus. The most important finding from the installation was a comfortable space that incorporated some elements of domesticity, helped to create a sense of belonging and foster community. Irregular, comfortable, and far from institutional, students looked relaxed in the lounge. In a sense, this was also a participatory project and another reason for its success. A space within the university created by students with furniture offered up for use by students, a student interpretation on what a social space should be. The activities and interactions within the lounge were observed with an improved amendment to the human ethics application. Based on the findings from the focus groups and installation, a range of possible interventions were developed through a master plan design exercise. One key finding is first explored: comfortable student lounge spaces, then developed to explore the second key finding from the focus groups, reorienting cultural and wellbeing spaces. The aim of this method was to demonstrate a holistic and interconnected approach to designing university spaces for wellbeing. Comfortable student spaces. The main campus is located in Kelburn. A series of buildings are interlinked, and there is a centralised, accessible community space called the Hub. However, as discussed in the focus groups, for some of the students, the Hub is not the ultimate social experience. This was likely the same for the lounge installation, taking position in the centre of the atrium, the closest equivalent to the Hub at Tertiary campus. The focus group content provided an opportunity to extend the lounge findings to provide smaller social spaces. You don't even need to make full zones, just make those empty spaces more hospitable. Underutilised circulation areas were identified with the potential to be transformed into inviting social spaces. Accessibility and location were important when selecting potential spaces for intervention. Spaces were chosen in widened circulation areas, close to lecture and seminar rooms, along key circulation paths, and across the main level of occupation. These spaces were generally furnished, but had a strong institutional feel with identical and durable items. Spaces were located across the campus, and 3 were tested in more detail. One example is Cotton Street, a large walkway connecting the south end of the campus to the Hub. To make the space more inviting, the approach was to create several levels of intimacy. This includes an open lunch space, a raised lounge space with multiple groupings of furniture, and timber stud partitions, creating a sense of enclosure while still providing visual transparency, and smaller, more enclosed spaces. A variety of special types of furniture provides students with choice. To make these spaces more hospitable, a need for kitchen facilities was repetitively referred to in the focus group discussion. An analysis of Carbon Campus found that vending machines were plentiful, but microwaves to reheat food and make a cup of tea were not. Only several microwaves were found, and they were supplied by the Student Association rather than the university. By creating adjacencies between comfortable spaces and amenities, these spaces could become more supportive of well-being. A deliberate and space-specific intervention is applied to an angular look in the Kirk building. The initial focus of the space was to provide amenity, a place to prepare lunch or a hot drink in a visible and well-connected space with a more intimate feel. Design strategies include its location, nearby 2 lecture theatres and an outdoor courtyard. Adding more comfort, as simple as providing a back to a seat and adding colour and more materials. And a curved bench and seating responds directly to the space. To test a holistic and interconnected approach to designing for well-being, the master plan exercise was further explored to test the second finding from the focus groups, reorienting social and cultural spaces. This exercise focused on 2 spaces promoting inclusion: the Athena Rooms, which are support and learning spaces for Māori students, and the Rainbow Inclusion Office. These spaces were selected due to the in-depth discussion around these spaces during the focus group, as well as an identified lack in spatial priority to these spaces. Currently, the Rainbow Inclusion Office is a staff space, an opportunity to get support from an advisor, but not an informal space to connect with peers. Despite the office's close proximity to other important spaces supporting well-being, the Rainbow Inclusion Office is disconnected from the campus centre. The entrance is barely visible, set back from the Student Union building atrium. One student felt that the space could be more integrated into the campus community. A lounge space located nearby could support the Rainbow Inclusion Office, providing a safe space for students to socialise, as well as creating a stronger visual presence, promoting inclusion within the university. 2 Athena rooms were also identified. The first was located off a small corridor shared only with bathrooms, with very poor visibility, despite a beautiful tub of mat being located outside. The second Athena room was more visible due to its location off a main corridor, but the identity was restricted by the uniformity of a newly designed science building. It is a smaller space for work, but there's no social space. Relocating the Cotton Building Athena room towards the hub creates a stronger visible presence. And through a proposed informal social space for all students, the Athena Room, which is still a private work and support space for Māori students, could become better integrated into the university community. The design of an Athena Lounge should be co-designed with Athena staff and students. However, this visualization is an idea of how the space could work. The following design strategies were considered: soft edges through furniture to create a more deliberate link to Athena. Floor treatment differentiates and connects the space. Large couches hold the space. Lighter chairs and beanbags can be moved for flexible space use. Smaller and larger configurations for variations in group sizes, and including contemporary and traditional Māori artwork. To conclude, this research followed a multidisciplinary process which kept the users as the focus. This was critical in designing for student well-being. The lounge installation gave confidence in the process of engagement with students and implementing the findings from the focus group discussion and literature to inform further design. And the design approach supports the Māori perspective of mental health, which is interconnected and holistic and considers culture in a way that could be of value internationally. Inspired by the lounge installation, smaller social spaces could be an opportunity to explore co-design, working with diverse student groups across the design of different lounge spaces. Involving students in the creation of these spaces aims to improve feelings of connection to the space, as well as a sense of pride through a contribution to the campus environment. And as a result, students are likely to want to spend time in these spaces. However, at the very least, to continue to involve users, these concepts should then be presented back to users for feedback and improvement. This research advocates for the design of space for wellbeing to be at the forefront of our built environment and hopes to contribute to an under-researched field which needs motivation to stimulate discussion and change. It also shows that some very real changes could be stimulated by very modest changes to the physical environment. One of the unexpected findings is that the actual choice of furnishings can make a real difference in the level of achieved success in favour of less institutionalised and durable appearances. This is showing that a more sophisticated understanding of the impact of more modest interventions is still needed in architecture, and that the participation in creation of an intervention could be more significant than the overall design vision. Because the interventions are physically modest, and more modest interventions are generally more sustainable, this project presents an important reminder that a sophisticated understanding of the interaction between people and the physical environment is essential for support of the best outcomes for both the people and the natural environment.